Welcome into Five Things after we're doing it again, guys. Another blowout loss by USC at the Coliseum. This is Erik McKinney, joined by Marc Kulkin and Greg Katz. And again, we're giving our five things after USC's 42-26 loss to Utah. This is the third Pac-12 loss for USC already this season. And there really is no way to kind of, talk about what happened there outside of just saying another home game, another blowout, and we're trying to put some pieces together here. So let's go to our first thing. Greg, we'll start with you. And first thing, as always, we'll go ahead and try to come up with a player of the game from this one.
Well, I think the player of the game for USC is Drake London. I think that he showcased to the nation why he very much may be the Biletnikoff Award winner. I mean, some of his catches, his toughness, everything that goes with it. He gave such an effort. He tried so hard. He took some unnecessary shots, shall we say, love taps. And, I think the guy is ready to move on to the NFL, and that we should all enjoy him while he's here, because he probably, if he had come back one more year, he would be really solidified as one of the great ones in USC history. And you could put him along with Keyshawn Johnson and Mike Williams and some of the others. But in this day and age, it's hard to keep anybody for more than 3 years. So hats off to Drake London. You did well, my friend. Other than the assassination, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play? I enjoyed Drake London.
Marc, go ahead. You're jump in with your player of the game.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback off that. Obviously, Drake London was the player of the game. He had a chance to actually tie or break Robert Woods' record for a single game with 17 receptions. He finished with 16. He was targeted 20 times. Believe it or not, ironically, Drake London is responsible for not at least tying the record, because he had at least one or two easy drops that he normally would make. So on that note, it's just kind of a microcosm of what this team is. Even when they have a chance to break records, they kind of fail to execute. But, not to take anything away, Drake had a phenomenal game. 16 catches, 162 yards, probably another 4 or 5 bruises on his body. So to your point, Greg, hopefully he can last the season and earn that Biletnikoff Award. That's, I think, the question at this point.
Yeah,
Erik, who's your player of the game?
Clearly, it's Drake. I'm okay that he doesn't set that record in a game like this. I do hope at some point, the rest of the season, that he can get there and that he does, get 17 or 18 and continues kind of this run that he's on. Again, the player of the game for me, it's got to come from the other side. It's Utah quarterback Cam Rising. I mean, he goes 22 of 28, 306 yards, 3 touchdowns. Oh, also 6 carries, 27 yards, a touchdown where he runs through the USC defense, a big third down conversion run, did everything. He hung out on the game, on the field for a long time after, soaked it up with the Utah fans here. That was a big time showing. And again, a quarterback comes into the Coliseum wearing not Cardinal and gold and puts up a big performance. So again, it's Cam Rising. A bunch of guys from Utah really could have been that. For USC, it's Drake London. He's again the standout, again, kind of the one guy that is going to show up and put up stats game in and game out for USC. We'll go to our second thing here, and that's play of the game. Greg, we'll start with you. Play of the game from this one.
Well, I'm going to stick with the London theme. I thought if you were going to get a highlight on ESPN, it certainly would have been the 20-yard TD hurdle that he jumped up in the air. I mean, that, to me, isolated unto itself, showed you everything you need to know. He can catch it, he can run it, he can hurdle, he's an athlete. He's that player that you would see drafted many decades ago by the Dallas Cowboys, a guy that could play basketball and football, and Tom Landry would say that guy is a football player in a basketball player's body. And I'm sure that, the old Trojan basketball coach, Andy Enfield, wishes he could be a forward on his team. But He's got bigger fish to fry, and he's going to make a lot of money on Sunday. But what a wonderful catch and run for a touchdown.
Yeah, that's one of those kind of that goes on your highlight reel when you're talking about Bolitnikoff awards and that sort of thing at the end of the year. Mark, your play of the game from this one.
Yeah, I'm going to give Utah the play of the game. It was the flea flicker right before halftime. That was the punch to the gut, and this team did not come back in the second half fighting. They did not set their jaw. They did not fight like warriors. They got their ass kicked. Hand it to them. You know, we talked about this on the show earlier in the week with you and Chris. Yeah, I'll leave it there because if I say anything further, it won't be nice.
Yeah, I'll go with Utah too, and it's just before that, and it's a good outcome for Utah, but it's when USC has the ball. Utah scores to go at 14-10. They're kind of towards the end of the second quarter. USC gets it back. It's a nice first play to Drake London, and then Justin Dietz is flagged for a personal foul, and it comes back, and it just kind of set the tone for that drive. USC had 4 minutes to go ahead and try to put something together there at the end of the second quarter, score, maybe take a lead into half and kind of feel good after that first half. That play brings it back. A couple plays later that Keaton gets sacked on a 2nd and 8 and sets up a kind of unmanageable third down. They punt, Utah comes all the way back and then hits Mark's play, the flea flicker there. And I know I mentioned a lot of plays, but it's the beginning of that drive where USC had a chance. Okay, let's regroup, let's put it together, let's go down and get some points here at the end of the first half. And it just kind of unravels and it falls apart. And that was, again, kind of the first sense where you're getting boy, this might not be good here in the second half with how this is playing out. So again, it's not a positive for USC when we're talking about plays of the game from this one. Let's go to the third thing, and Mark, we'll start with you here. And the third thing for us is what you expected coming into the game, and it delivered, and you did end up seeing that here with USC Utah.
Beginning of the week, I called it. Utah is going to beat USC through the air. And, your player of the game was who, Erik?
Quarterback. Yep.
There you go.
Throw the ball.
So, USC secondary, they were taught a lesson tonight. In every facet, whether it be run support, tackling, coverage, they did nothing well at all. I'm going to shut up.
It was that there were guys running open, there were deep balls, there were short things, there were trying to come up and stop yards after catch and tackles. Yeah, it was kind of a hodgepodge of what could go wrong, did go wrong there. Greg, you're expected and delivered here in this game.
Well, I said that in the first quarter and a half, Utah would decide how this game was going to go. And sometimes when you don't think you're getting a lot of yards on rushing, you're punishing. You're body blow after body blow after body blow. And it really, going back to what Mark said a little bit, it's about how much heart you play with. It's how tough you are. The old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And I think that it got a point midway in the second quarter. I said, it's beginning. I can see the wilting process. I can see the frustration. And I think that probably Whittingham said, if you hit them in the mouth enough times in the first half, we're going to make a statement that's going to explode in the second half. I expected that, Utah would move the ball. I expected because look at Stanford did it. And, if Stanford's doing it and Oregon State's doing it, why wouldn't Utah do it? Because that's kind of their forte. But, sometimes you wish it wasn't expected, but it got expected, and it was unfortunate.
I'll go. My expectation was I don't care what opposing defenses do. Drake London is still going to get his numbers because USC's offense at times may as well not even take the field if they're not getting Drake London involved. That is the way that they're moving the ball right now. And so we've talked a lot about him, how he shows up, how he's playing, the physical presence that he brings out there. It's outstanding. And so at this point, you just expect he's going to do something really sensational every time out. But I'm going to go to the other side because we're talking about a blowout loss. And so we can't just kind of heap praise on a USC player. 14-0 Utah in the third quarter. This is something that happens. This happens when USC struggles. They lose the third quarter, they lose it decisively, and they don't score. And so at this point, again, when they're playing a good team, a team with a pulse, a team with heart, a team that's going to come out and play hard, you kind of put your finger on that third quarter and say that this is where things could turn. And Utah started it in the second quarter and carried it all the way through the third quarter. And that's something where until USC proves on the field that they can do that against a good team and keep kind of foot on the gas coming out of halftime, you have to expect that they're going to struggle in the third quarter against good, pretty good, and certainly really good teams that they find on their schedule. All right, here we go. Fourth thing. Greg, let's go back to you. This was the surprise, something that surprised you out of this game.
Well, I guess I've kept the venom inside my fangs long enough. Honestly, I didn't think this team could be this bad. It is a bad team. It plays with no heart. It's fundamentally unsound in many, many areas. Now, I don't want to usurp what I'll probably say in Inside the Trojans Huddle, which is the show that we have on Tuesdays, shameless plug. But really, there comes a point where you want to blame the coaches because you think that all the players are coachable. But they're not all coachable. It's very much, having coached myself, and I think Marc has coached too, look, there are times when you can tell the players the right thing to do. They don't do it. And then fans in the stands yell at you that, why don't you coach them? I could sit there and say to a parent, hey, your kid misbehaves in class. Why aren't you a good parent at home? And they could say, I am a good parent at home. But when they come to class, they do whatever they want to do. And that's kind of where we're at. There's one player that I am not going to mention by name because of my coaching background. I don't want to embarrass him, but he's in the secondary and he plays one of the corner spots. He was relentlessly picked on. He was wide open for replays and all that sort of stuff. And this player has indicated, I'm going to go to the NFL after this season. Dude, you need another year. You can go to the NFL, but if you play like that, you're going to find out that NFL does mean not for long. It's just, I think one of the other things that kind of surprised me, honestly, was that Slovis wasn't knocked out of the game. That the offensive line only gave up a couple of sacks. He was racked around a little bit, not as much as I thought he was going to be. So that was a little bit surprising to me. And I was happy for the kid. He's certainly not the reason that they are what they are right now. The quarterback takes the blame, but all in all, I think we're going to be running out of surprises with this team because I think it's getting to the point where we can say after 6 games, you are what you are. And, it's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, Marc, go ahead. You're surprised from this one.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them, and I'm going to not be nice. So earlier in the week, on Wednesday after practice, we had a chance to talk to Chase Williams. And there was a question that was asked of him, what are you guys doing differently at home as opposed to when you're on the road? And let me just read his answer real quick. The last losses we had in the Collie wasn't up to our standard and what we believe in. We have to go protect our home. We have to go in there and dominate, just like any other week, whether it's away or at home, but especially when it's at home. And I feel like we have to continue to take pride in that and put in our hearts to stay hungry while we're in the Coliseum. You know what? I think the team is on a diet when they're in the Coliseum because they show no hunger. They show no fight. So as a head coach, if I'm seeing that from my veterans, from the upperclassmen, the surprise for me is, and I asked Dante this after the game, why aren't you putting in the younger players to see what they can do? I'll let the fans watch the interview for his own answer because I don't think you're going to appreciate the answer. So that's my surprise. the lack of fight at home, the lack of heart at home, and that the coaches don't instill any fight by saying, you know what, you're not getting the job done. I'm going to put somebody else in to see if they can get the job done.
And the bye week, I think
it's a vicious
bye
circle.
week would be fascinating for that too.
Oh, absolutely.
To see what kind of goes on there.
Absolutely.
What the starters and kind of key backups look like for Notre Dame. My surprise is less big picture, but I do think the fact that again they come out, start to fall behind, and then it just falls apart at home. It's surprising now. Again, won't happen the next time that they're at home and it happens. That'll go in the expected column, I think. But Darwin Barlow got off to a great start, was solid in the first quarter, and then didn't really see him again. Again, there was no kind of update about injury or anything like that. That seemed like something where maybe that was working. And I know kind of they've gotten into a place, and Graham Harrell's talked about it before, where you fall behind and now you got to do some different things. And boy, does it feel like they sort of panic and just start kind of throwing it all over and doing that sort of stuff. But that to me was kind of the in-game surprise when he started out hot, and then you didn't see them go to him sort of consistently throughout. But let's go. Let's finish it up. And Mark, we'll start with you on the fifth thing, and that's the biggest takeaway from this game.
I think it's the lack of accountability. And I'm just going to extend that to the coaching staff. I don't think the players should be subjected to the media after the games like this. But when I find certain coaches not hanging around and taking accountability, I think I understand where the team is, where their head is. Yeah, I'll just end it right there. I'll try and put it into words tomorrow with my final Sunday takeaway.
Greg, go ahead. Your takeaway from this one.
My takeaway is, what is the future for the rest of the season? This is almost unheard of that SC, after the first week in October, mathematically is still in the Pac-12 South race, but they're on life support. They are in deep trouble. Not only are they in trouble to win the South Division, that almost becomes secondary. They're in serious jeopardy of not getting a bowl game. This team could very well end up on a losing end of a season. They could end up 5-7. And I don't want to say it's a good thing, but it would be a reflection of what this year has been all about. The bye week is a beautiful time. It's a time to really get everybody together and say, look, now I do want to say one thing that Mark said, which I think was important. The players aren't getting paid to play football, but the coaches are getting paid good money at USC. The least they could do would be to show leadership, show a role model example by speaking to the media afterwards, because they are the adults supposedly in the room, and to not talk with the media afterwards sends a very ugly message in all directions. And I do hold them accountable for not speaking to the media. It's not the first time they've done it. They've done it before, but when the going is the way it is right now, they are really obligated to face up to it, because if they're not going to face up to it, why should the players face up to it? It's the old thing. Why should I do it, Dad? You don't do it. You smoke, but you tell me not to smoke. And I think that this is something that the coaching staff is going to have to sit down in the future, in the next week, and say, look, guys, where are we going? And Dante's going to have to look at, he's the head coach now. I know he's not the coordinator one way or the other, but it's all hands on deck. Okay. They're putting out the chairs of the Titanic at this moment. And, you can't just rearrange the chairs and say, we're not going down. He's going to have to sit there and say, if I'm going down, we're going down the way I want it to go down. And so, I expect that Dante will be on the staff next year. And the new coach is going to pay attention to what Dante does this year. I'm sure they'll keep him, but, Dante can do himself well by being the head coach, as difficult as it is in his position. So hopefully they can make something out of it the second half of the season.
Yep. And that kind of goes into my takeaway is, boy, it feels like there are no answers right now. There has been tweaks for practice. There were some tweaks for how to get ready for this game and prep and that sort of stuff. And you come out and you do this. How many more tweaks or changes or anything like that do you even have in there? I mean, how many can you make? And if you haven't made them by now, and absolutely, Dante does not get credit for the Stanford loss. That's before him, and that's, you're trying to change after that. But you had Oregon State, and you've got this one now against Utah. If you couldn't see what happened against Stanford, see what happened against Oregon State, and figure something out for Utah, at what point can you start putting in those changes and finding those answers to get this thing corrected? I don't know where you are right now, kind of as a program, be it coaches, be it players, be it scheme, be it effort, be it whatever. If you couldn't find the answer for this one, I don't know where you come up with those. And like you talked about, you go searching for 3 wins to get the bowl eligibility right now, and that's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle to find kind of, okay, you got this one, and Arizona's one. You hope they're going to show up for Notre Dame. You hope they're going to show up for UCLA, but there are some programs right now left on this schedule that smell blood in the water a little bit with USC, and there isn't a program that brings out kind of killer instinct to the rest of the Pac-12 like when USC's down. Those programs will absolutely love piling on a wounded USC, and so they've got to figure something out going forward, because that was not a good performance that was put out there on the field at the Coliseum against Utah. And so on that happy note, we'll wrap this up. And again, that's our look kind of at 5 things from a 42-26 Utah win against USC. For Marc Kulkin, for Greg Katz, this is Erik McKinney. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening to WeAreSC.